Jonathan Becher and I, we had a list of questions I submitted.
We
We
did.
just decided to throw those out.
That's right. None of the buttoned up stuff. Let's just do
So
it.
what are we going to talk about?
Well, normally you get together a marketing guy, and the marketing
Right.
guy wants to talk about events. Sapphire
right,
Now,
yeah.
Tech Ed, Influencer Summit, or they want to talk about some hot new marketing campaign and TV ads. We don't
Right.
want to do that, do we?
No.
Okay. So what I thought you and maybe your viewers might be interested in is talking about 3 things that are happening in marketing overall. Not just at SAP, but at every marketing department.
All right.
And then maybe what that means to some of the viewers. Okay?
Sounds
Make sense?
good. Yeah, let's hit it.
So I'll tell you what the 3 things are, and then we can dig into it.
Okay.
So the first one is a lot of people know marketing about art, right? They see the beautiful pictures, they see the videos, and they think that's marketing. But there's a bunch of science that happens in marketing increasingly now as well. And science and art are sort of getting together and getting married. I want to talk a little bit about that. Okay?
Okay.
Second thing is, in the good old days, I don't know when those were, sometime in the past, there was a difference between business to business marketing, like SAP is in the business to business, and business
Yeah.
to consumer. That's died. There's no real difference anymore, and that's making some pretty profound impact. We should probably talk about that.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
And you've probably seen we're changing people, we're changing approach.
I noticed that. I noticed something about a new person that might have something to do with consumer marketing. But
Okay.
anyway.
We'll come back and talk about
Yeah.
that. So the first one is art and science and
Yeah.
marketing together. Second
Okay.
one is breaking down B2B to B2C.
Okay.
And then the third one that might be interesting is old style marketing was very push oriented. You figure out what stories, what message you want to get out, and you just go shout into the wilderness, right?
Okay.
New style marketing is very pull. It's supporting how people want to get educated and learn and maybe hopefully eventually buy, not just sort of sell them stuff. So those are 3 big things.
Let's leave plenty of time for the third.
Oh yeah?
Okay, start with the first.
You want to go in that order?
Yeah, start in order, but leave time for the third.
You're the time master, so we'll
All
make
right,
sure we do
sounds
that.
good.
So first of all, I think everyone pretty much gets the art of marketing. That's the stuff you see a lot, right? That's the commercials on televisions, the billboards in airport, that stuff. But there's a bunch of science now. In fact, the science of marketing is very much of using technology, using our own technology to understand what trends are going on. Let me give you a couple examples. The easiest example is when you're actually generating demand for a product, there's something that we've always called the funnel. And the funnel is essentially the pipeline. It goes from awareness. Oh, I didn't know SAP had a product that did this. There's a lot of problems. We have a lot of products that people don't know about. To the, oh, I know they have a product, but is it really a good fit for me? Or is it only for the biggest companies? Or does it not solve my problem? From the, oh, it is a good fit for me, I should consider buying it, all the way down to close. And the classic funnel looks like a martini glass. It's really big at the top,
Right.
and then you keep winnowing people down until you get to a relatively small number of people at the bottom.
Right.
Okay? And in traditional marketing, particularly traditional B2B marketing, the people always thought, you actually learn this in school, it's in textbooks, which is just keep filling at the top of the funnel.
Right.
And if you cast a wide enough net, then it doesn't matter how many people convert, you'll eventually get enough people to buy your product.
The
Right?
mass marketing scenario.
That's the
Right,
mass
okay.
marketing. And that's,
Yep.
you know what? The problem with that, particularly when you start using social media and email, and it starts feeling like spam.
Right.
I'm sure, not just from SAP, but from lots of people, you get all these emails, and like, I don't really care about that.
Absolutely.
So what we've done, we've completely turned that approach on its head the last couple of years. And we've said, let's analyze the pipeline. Let's understand, not companies, but people, where are they at each stage of their learning journey, and decide what tactics are best to help them move to the next stage. If you're somewhere in the middle, we don't want to send you brochures and emails and invitations to webinars. We actually want to start sending you case studies and ROI, or maybe even references about what other people have done. If you're even further in the study, we don't want to actually probably communicate you by email or on the web.
Right.
We want to do an in-person meeting, maybe come to you and actually do a closing event. So what we've done is we can understand the strength of the funnel by what country you're in, by what product, by whether we're selling direct, etc. We have this very complicated, multi-dimensional system built on our technology, accelerated by HANA, using a Bob J dashboard, and we can see now proactively where the weaknesses are. So while my sales colleagues are already are thinking about Q1 and how much revenue and the deals are going to close, I'm actually thinking about Q2, Q3, Q4, and I'm trying to strengthen the pipeline for them so that when they go try to close deals, there are enough interested people. That's
Okay.
science. That science, by the way, is called
Right.
demand management. Does it make any sense?
Yeah, and is marketing automation in that context? as
Marketing
well?
automation is in that context
Okay.
as well.
It's part of that umbrella.
That's
Okay.
part of that umbrella. But a lot of
Okay.
it is analytics, a lot of it is predictive, a lot of it is actually personalization. So you might think, oh great, they've used technology to market me better, why do I care? And a simple example why you care is you get less stuff that you don't care about.
Right.
So think about the web. Right now, if you show up at SAP.com, you and I are going to see almost the identical thing, right? But what's coming, and you'll see a lot more of it this summer, is a personalized SAP.com using those analytics where we look at your click stream, what events you've gone to, what webinars you've gone to, what content you've looked at SAP.com. We put it all together, privacy concerns, if you've opted into this,
Yeah.
and then we only deliver you the content. We personalize the thousands of things to things you might care about the most.
I've actually gotten a couple sales calls from SAP, from SAP.com, from my activity there.
Yeah.
Like, if I see a webinar,
Yep.
I can get a sales call around that topic.
Yep.
Which generally I thought was pretty cool, except for the fact that there's obviously some analytics pieces missing. If I'm being confused with the customer, there's still some missing pieces. But,
Absolutely.
But the concept of getting the targeted call based on what you're interested in, I think is definitely more cutting edge than simply mass mailing me stuff about what's going on.
So one of the ways we're going to solve the problem, because we do have the problem, and the
Yeah.
reason we have the problem yet is we don't yet have any of your personal identifiable information in the system.
Right.
So that we don't know that you're a mentor, analyst, blogger person.
Right.
You're just a person to us.
Right.
So if you opt in, and you
Yeah.
may not have, and give us some of your information, then we're going to use what's called collaborative filtering to find other people like you and what they're interested in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever bought a product on Amazon.com as the classic example. People that bought this also
Right.
got that.
Yeah.
We'll use that to then personalize your experience even more because we'll know a little bit more about you. And that's
Yeah.
less likely to happen as time goes on.
Okay. So that was the first.
So that's
yeah.
science.
Okay.
The beauty of science is, yep, uses all our technology, but the idea is not for us, but for you to simplify your life so you're not stuck with too many emails, too many invitations, etc. Okay?
Yep.
Because I don't need to tell you that there's a new web seminar happening in Kuala Lumpur. You're unlikely to join,
Probably not. Won't be there. Yeah.
but probably not. Won't be there.
Yep.
Okay. So second one, B2B versus B2C. So you probably think we've got nothing in common with marketing at Coca-Cola or marketing at Daimler or marketing at Chase. And my answer is we have everything to do with that. That the old, we don't really anymore sell to companies, we sell to people. The joke I like to tell internally is big glass buildings don't buy software, people do. But the old day, the way everybody in the industry marketed, we do as well. In fact, we're famous for it in billboard ads. All of you have probably seen it, is Porsche runs SAP.
Right.
But that's about the company. That doesn't tell you, well, who did we help inside Porsche? Did we help the finance department? Did we help the marketing department? Who inside the marketing department did we actually did? So where we're going is twofold. What you should see more from us is much more of the human side of the brand. In fact, we have an internal code word we call Humanize the Brand, where you'll see, launching in March and April, stories of SAP superheroes, people that have changed the way they run their jobs and gotten better in a much more consumer-like. And you'll start seeing how our customers help people in the world. One of the fun ones you might have seen already is, how'd you get here today?
Andrew is my chauffeur.
Ah,
Drove.
She drove. Okay.
Yeah.
So, have you seen the SAP Fast Facts before?
No.
70% of plus of the world's beer is manufactured by
Oh,
SAP
right.
systems.
The beer and the chocolate and all that
chocolate,
stuff. Yeah,
80% of the running shoes and all that. Is that B2C or is that B2B? Hard to say because it's consumers.
Right.
Right? It starts talking about how our impact on the world. Why? Because we're going to start with the big story of here's how the world can be better and back that into how we actually market it as well. So yes, we are increasingly hire people that come from a more consumer background so that we can talk about individual people.
That's recent high-profile hire.
In fact, yes, we hired the ex-CMO of
Yeah.
Walmart as an example of the kind of person that would actually do that.
It seems to me that so much of consumer marketing is still wrapped up into mass marketing approaches, though. When I think about consumer marketing, I think about, Super Bowl ads and things like that. Is that a contradiction with your previous statement about personalization?
Do you think I should have a Super Bowl ad?
SAP?
Yeah.
No, because I don't think
I
that
agree.
kind of marketing would work.
So in fact, classic consumer marketing is more like Procter & Gamble. I'll give Procter & Gamble a good shout out. And that is, you actually segment your audience pretty well. You say this particular product is for married couples with a child at home. This is for single women. This is for single male executives that travel too much.
Right.
What we've historically done is segment based on industry, but not as much segment based on business function. And so you'll start seeing us do that combination
Okay.
And the real interesting thing is the interaction between the line of business, the business function, and the industry. It's the retail merchandise manager, it's the public servant who has to answer the hotlines, it's the traveling salesperson for the pharmaceutical. That's what I call audience-based marketing, and I think that is more consumer-oriented.
Okay.
But
and
not so much Super Bowl ads.
not so much Super Bowl ads, right? Okay.
Maybe World Cup.
So let's throw the third ingredient into the mix, which is the transition from push to pull. What's that about?
So let me give you an analogy and a story. 10 years ago when I bought a car, all I really know when I bought a car is I wanted an SUV. I live in California. Everybody was buying SUVs back then, sports utility vehicles, right? So what'd you do? Well, it was really hard to get information about SUVs, right? The internet wasn't nearly as mature as it was now, right? So I went to my local dealer, the one that was nearest to my house. I won't say what particular brand it was, and I said, I'm interested in buying an SUV. And he's like, all right, tell me what you want, how much you're willing to pay. Maybe he gave me the brochure. If I wasn't, I could go for a test drive, but I was at that person's mercy. And if I didn't like that particular SUV, I drove down the road and tried to find the computer. But it was all about the vendors, the dealers, and their access to whatever information. I didn't know how much it costs, so we had to kind of debate, and that was the entire experience. 2 years ago when I bought another car, it was completely different. I said, this time I want a sedan. I think in general I want something that gets this kind of mileage per gallon. I want something that has this kind of safety thing. I did probably 90% of my research and narrowed it down to basically 2 models, right? And I went to those 2 dealers and I said, here's what I'm willing to pay. Here, I'm not care so much about color because that's not big, but I do care about the following features. If you're willing to match this price, I'll buy from you. Who had the power then?
Well, arguably you did, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happened is there was a mental shift from them selling a car to me in the first case to me buying a car. Now it turns out one of the 2 dealers was unwilling to match any of the loose guidelines I gave them, so I didn't buy from them. The other dealer said, okay, if you're willing to give on this, then I can meet your number, or if you want all these things here, then you need to give me a couple $100 more, right? But I still felt like that I was in control of the price. In fact, I didn't even have to talk to a person if I wanted. I could have bought the thing online, but in general, that supporting that process, I went to vendor websites, I went to online forums, I asked friends and experts. I ran the process over 6 months, as opposed to have to go in a dealership with that classic line that we always joke about, which is, what will it take to put me in a car today? Enterprise software is moving the same thing. In the old days,
You think?
oh yeah, absolutely. In the old days, the cartoon image, it was never this way, but the joke people had in their mind was the sales rep showed up and he or she was in control of all the information about the products. Maybe they brought their SC and they did the demo, and you were at them. It's never quite this bad. This is the way people think. And they had to go to Sapphire to learn more. They had to go that. What we're doing is inverting it on its head, which is everything you want, you can find in your forums, on SC.com, and you're going to get yourself as educated as you want, as slowly or as quickly as you want. And then when it's time for you to say, okay, I'm switching from learning to buying to now I want to do a transaction, you'll come to us or one of our agents, could be a distributor, could be a VAR, and say, here's the, right? But if you say, I have to have this price, I have to have these functions, I have to have that, you can't get everything, right? But if you're doing it the way I bought the car, you can say, this is more important to me, this is less important to me, and then the transaction can get done. That's from push to pull. That's from selling to buying.
Doesn't that reality undermine the ability of vendors like SAP to sort of put out certain kinds of messages, for example, certain blogs with certain slants, and hope that the reader buys into that because the enterprise buyer is sophisticated enough to read contrarian viewpoints and independent auditor type perspectives? And doesn't that change the implications of what kind of content you should be sharing and that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. And here's the scary part. And this is why I think the entire marketing discipline, not just SAP, is in for a wake-up call. And that is the old marketing, and this is this is a general discussion about the discipline, not about SAP. Let's say 2 or 3 years ago there was a product marketing or a solution marketing discipline where you got a bunch of smart people together and you said, let's decide what the most important messages are about this product. The classic example we use in the industry is the iPad. They debated for months about should the iPad, what it should be, and the answer was thin. That's why all the advertising you see for your iPad, you always see it from the side so you can see that it's thin. It's not that it's light, it's not that it's fast, it's not that it's thin is their word. And that's what we did. We spent a lot of time debating about, is HANA fast or is HANA revolutionary? Is HANA, what are the words, right? Those days are gone. You can't control the message anymore, right?
Yeah.
You can seed it, you can join a discussion, but it's much more about content curation than than
Right.
it is about content creation these days.
Right.
And I think that's okay. Because frankly, most of the messages are supportive. If somebody says something that's wrong, you guys will find it long before we find it and you'll fix it. If they say something that's not positive about our products or the company and it's right, we should probably know about it anyway and go fix it. I think it's good.
I had a client, I was talking to them about their marketing plans for the year, and I said, get all the CIOs from your industry in the same room and let them have a conversation and step out of the room.
Yep.
And they were like, but what about me? And I was like, it's not about you.
It's not about you. I agree.
You're a facilitator now. If you do it the right way, you're a facilitator of these kinds of peer interactions, people trusting each other, and they appreciate the fact that you put them together. Another example would be...
By the way, I would say orchestrator as opposed to facilitator.
Okay, fair enough.
Because
All
in some
right.
cases you have to push a few
Yeah.
people harder and hold a few people back, but you still can't control it.
Totally. The other thing is sometimes you guys have put people like Dennis and myself in a room with customers and actually not even been in the room.
Yeah.
And now, admittedly, there's trust involved in that. Like, you wouldn't have done that until you got to know us better and knew what we were doing.
Of course.
But the point is, you let us drive that conversation. Our argument is that creates a more authentic type of content because it's sort of free to be what it is. And so I think SAP is getting some of that. Andrea, phone call?
I think we just got censored by the censor
yeah.
police or something.
Yeah, and I think there's more, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think there's opportunity for you guys to take that further as far as, like, for example, you guys have a lot of customer panels at events, and one thing I've noticed is that they're still pretty heavily moderated. Like, sometimes I'm kind of wishing they were a little more open season. I understand that there's a balance, but a lot of times I find at the end there's just a few audience questions. I'm almost envisioning more of a live dynamic where it's a little more without a net, and people are asking.
So what if I asked you to moderate the next customer panel?
I could try. I would do it differently than you did.
What's wrong with that?
Well, not you specifically,
Yeah.
but you meaning SAP. Not necessarily anything. Maybe it would fail, but I would, it'd be interesting, yeah.
So I'm completely in agreement with you.
Yeah.
So let me give you another concrete example. And if I already said this in this talk, apologize. But
Yeah.
if you go to sap.com, we talked about it's not personalized yet.
Right.
The other thing is, right now it's still largely content that I create. Not
Right.
me, Jonathan, but I, SAP.
Right.
I envision a not too distant future where maybe only half the content comes from us. There should be content coming from customers, from developers, from partners, from third parties, etc. Maybe some of your content should be syndicated
Right.
on that side as well. Because if it's an authentic voice, yes, it needs to be seeded with what the corporate messages are. Because actually people want to know what position we have, but it
Right.
can't be just that. And where people are in disagreement, there should be discussion forums. So I kind of think that the SCNs of the world and the SAP.coms of the world and the blogs.sap and all those things will probably meld together into one thing, which I don't know exactly what it looks like just yet
What it
in the
looks
sort
like,
of a year to 2 year time frame.
Yeah, I know Social Media Week is coming up, and there's a day that SAP is responsible for. I don't know a lot about it. I'm kind of on the outside looking in. I tweeted that I'll be there to offer my contrarian views.
Of course you will.
Because I tend to take kind of an antisocial view of social in some ways, but I'm curious. The problem that I have with social right now is I feel like at its worst, it's really becoming kind of a popularity contest that doesn't really reflect the true value of content. And to me, there's a danger in a herd mentality around what social is becoming. I described Facebook recently as becoming a high school cafeteria. I see the same charismatic people showing up at the top of my feed now every day. Part of that is because Facebook is making those decisions for me. But I'm kind of curious just in terms of social, like you have this event coming up. SAP, I think, has come a long way with social, but where are we currently with that?
So
how does that fit into our conversation?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think one of the dangers we have as an industry is to think that social media is a different thing. It's just the latest of a long run of tactics as a way of having a conversation between, in our case, a vendor and the person that wants to get access to information. Now, it turns out the nice thing about social media is it breaks down some of the barriers that were there before, so it's particularly useful for some things. But if you think about it as, and the phrase I often use, as a shouting platform, you've missed the point. It's more intended to be a listening platform.
Right.
And the joke I've often said is when a cordless telephone first came out, we needed the adjective cordless to differentiate it from a traditional corded phone. But nobody says cordless phone anymore. It's just a phone now. And for the first couple of years of social media, we need to say social media marketing, social organization, social business. But in another year or two, there's no reason to do that. It's just an attribute of all the
Right.
marketing we do, of every kind of business.
Sure.
It's just that it's new, that we focus
Right.
on that.
Right, so you take something like clout, for example. I'm kind of a clout basher, and
It's easy to bash them, isn't
it
it?
is. But I think I find myself hoping that people inside of SAP aren't too naive around what clout scores mean. Because, for example, I know some people.
What's your cloud score?
What?
What is
I'm
your
not sure.
Yeah, me either. I don't know my cloud score.
But what I do know, I've looked at some people that I know have kind of a low social profile, but are really influential with customers and buying decisions.
Yep.
And it's kind of interesting how that works, where cloud sees them in the cloud world as not very influential because cloud's looking at a couple of platforms, and I'm looking at it in an enterprise context and saying these people are really influential, and I'm hoping that SAP understands those nuances. Do you think?
SAP is 59,000
Yeah.
or people or so pending the successful completion of the SuccessFactors acquisition. So
Right.
there is nothing that SAP understands as a
Fair
as a-
enough.
But I'll tell you that from my own point of view, and a lot of us in marketing, the thing that we know and we've learned is that ego metrics that are most common in
I
social
love that
media,
phrase, yeah.
the how many people are following me, the how many likes that I have, those are the wrong metrics to use.
Right.
I don't know that we have the right answer. I'll tell you
Right.
the one that I use personally because of what I want to do is I look at the percentage of tweets that I tweet that are retweeted by other people.
Mm-hmm.
And those other people can't just be people that work for me that think they have to retweet because it's part of
Mm-hmm.
their job. And if I have a relatively high percentage and I shoot for 50%, then I think I'm saying interesting things.
Right.
Now that's because that's my agenda, right?
Right.
But there are lots of other people that are still measuring themselves by, hey, I tweeted 47 times yesterday. So what? Or I have 8,000 followers.
Right.
I don't actually know how many followers I have. Do you know how many followers you have?
I have a vague idea. It's in somewhere in the 3,000 range, but it doesn't really matter.
Exactly right.
That doesn't
But we're
matter at all.
still there. In the old, this is the way disciplines always work. You always start with ego metrics, right?
Right.
How many visitors came to your website? And then you go, oh, but are they the visitors I actually care about? And what content are they consuming? And it
Right.
we get more mature as we go. We'll get there. Not in 2012 though.
Totally. Well, that's a conversation to be continued. Thanks a lot for your time.
No problem, John.
I enjoyed talking about stuff that had nothing to do with SAP events, but talk to you soon.
Take care,
Thanks.
as always.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.